Today's message has been brewing in me for several months. In fact, I tried to preach it a couple months and it just wasn't ready yet, and so I've preached parts of it in other places. But you need to understand why. I am convinced that God is doing an amazing thing in our world. I mean, some truly miraculous things, bringing to himself people from all over the place. We've been singing this morning, he can move the mountains, he is mighty to save. Well, let me tell you, he is moving people like you wouldn't believe. 17% of our world's population today is not in their country of origin. 17%. Now, I want to ask here, how many of you here today are not in your country of origin? You were born somewhere else. Would you raise your hand? Well, we're about 17% in here. It was a lot higher in the first service, as you might imagine. And the bottom line is this. This is not an American issue. This is not just the United States. Everywhere I go, somebody says, or I read in the paper, we have an immigration problem. And I just laugh. I just laugh because everybody is saying the same thing. When I can go to the little town of Estella in Spain and find a Latin American food market in Estella and can walk in and buy Inca Cola in Estella, God is moving people, okay? And this is happening everywhere. As I was in Cordova last week, you talk to people and they say, we're getting so many Peruvians that are coming over here. It's amazing how many Peruvians are there. Well, we can kind of understand that. When something's going on in one country and things aren't real good, they kind of move over to the next one, and then Argentina's doing bad, so they start moving somewhere else, and everybody just kind of moves around. But then they said things like this, and for some reason, we have a pocket of Senegalese people. And I'm going, what? Yeah, we've got this group of people from Senegal in Cordova. Let me tell you, Senegal and Cordova are not next door. That's a lot of swimming. And the amazing thing is, this is happening everywhere. As I read more and more books about it, I find out different things. As I was reading this book here called Church Planting Among Immigrants in U.S. Urban Centers. One of the things that it said that I did not know is that the U.S. ranks as the #1 immigrant receiving country in the world, drawing more than 20% of all immigrants internationally. All of them. Now, you and I are used to little Havana, and we're used to little Haiti. But if you go to El Cajon, California, that is home to little Baghdad with over 60,000 Iraqis. If you go to the Bay Area of California, it is home to little Kabul and made up of tens of thousands of Afghans. Minneapolis, Seattle, and Columbus, Ohio, why, I don't know, are home to well over 100,000 Somalis. Irving, Texas is home to 5,000 Kurds, with Nashville housing the largest group in the country. St. Louis is home to the largest number of Bosnians, between 35,000 and 60,000. Detroit has the largest concentration of Arab Muslims. These are Yemeni, Iraqi, Lebanese, and Palestinians, numbering in the tens of thousands. Second to Metro New York, there are 60,000 in South Paterson, New Jersey, home to thousands of Egyptians. I thought that's where all the Peruvians went, but the Egyptians are there too. 89,000 Tamils. And some of you are going, How do you eat that? That's not something you eat. It's a group of people. 89,000 live in the United States, with the largest concentration in central New Jersey. Why would they go to New Jersey? Why would anyone go to that? That's a different issue. In the South Paterson area of New Jersey, there are 378,000 Turks. The Burmese have significant populations in New York, LA, the Bay Area. We're going, okay. Dubuque, Iowa, and Fort Wayne, Indiana. What is going on? He can not only move the mountains, he can move the people. God is moving people everywhere. And when people move, the gospel goes with them. It's an amazing phenomenon. You can go throughout history and read. I got a real thick book. It makes me look really smart. I just read the last part. But it's a really thick book. And it gives a history of people movements all the way from the Old Testament to the present. And every time people move, the gospel goes with them. It's either because people moving take it with them, or because the people that are moving are more receptive and open to the gospel, and so God is reaching them as they are moving. It's an amazing thing. I did the survey in the first hour. How many of you came to know the Lord after you moved out of your country of origin? More than 50% of them raised their hand. Why? Because all of a sudden, the things you know, the societal pressures that hold you down, that just keep, everything is up for grabs when you're on the move, and your heart is more receptive to the gospel. When we did Experiencing God, we learned a couple of very important things, and don't ever forget them. Number one, God is always at work. Number two, God is inviting us to join Him in what He is doing. And I simply want to highlight to us today that God is doing something in our world. He is moving the world. And He is inviting us to step in and join Him in what He's doing. As the video said, I'm not talking about sending you to the other side of the world. I'm telling you, God has sent the other side of the world to your neighborhood. You're just not looking for them. They're here. Using the story of the Samaritan woman, the woman at the well, as a backdrop in John chapter 4, I want us to just highlight some things and use this idea of what if. John chapter 4, verse 1, you've got it there in your bulletins. It says, Jesus knew the Pharisees had heard that He was baptizing and making more disciples than John, though Jesus Himself didn't baptize them, His disciples did. So He left Judea and returned to Galilee. He had to go through Samaria on the way. Now I want you to stop right there. You can read the next couple verses. He had to go. The bottom line is He didn't. You're going, Russell, the Bible said He did. Yeah, but it's not that He had to go because that was the way to get there. No. When you look at it, the common route for people who were going from Judea down here at the bottom to Galilee up at the top was not through Samaria. Why? Because Jews didn't want to have anything to do with Samaritans. The regular route was to go over here, cross the Jordan, go up on the other side, come back across the Jordan, and totally bypass Samaria. But the Bible tells us that Jesus had to go through Samaria. Let me put this out there for your consideration. What if for Jesus to do what His Father wanted to, He had to go through Samaria? I want you to write this down. What if we made it a priority to look for those who are different than we are? What if we made it a priority? What if we said, okay, God is moving the nations around, and since God is moving the nations around, I'm going to step in here and I'm going to start looking. God, where can I join you in what you're doing? Make it a priority. Who are the immigrants in our community? You're going, we're all immigrants. I'm talking beyond those that look like we do. Let's be honest. There's not a whole lot of difference between us and even us in the first hour. We're pretty much alike. We may come from a different country, but we're pretty much alike. But you know something? There's a lot of other people in this town. I remember several years ago when we had a large migration of Nicaraguans back in the late 80s, early 90s. Our church adopted 6 Nicaraguan families. One of the things that I did was help them get into the school system. At that time in Miami Springs, all the foreign ones that wanted to come in had to go through this one center. And I went there and I was expecting a lot of people from Latin American countries. But I found a whole lot more. In fact, I was talking to the lady that was helping me with all these children, and she said, oh no, in Dade County Public Schools, we have people from 150 different countries. I'm going, oh my gosh, 150 different countries. That's in the public schools. Now you add the private, you move it up to the colleges and universities. Oh, wow, now we got a whole different story. There are people, leaders of 165 countries in this world, receive their education in United States colleges. Think about the impact we can have on the world if we will reach the international students while they're here. Every student that's ever lived away from home to go to college would die for a home-cooked meal, except Yale. Yale, you hated going home for the food, but Yale had good food. But besides Yale, everybody else, just get out of the cafeteria. Just go somewhere where someone would say, hey, you can't go home for the holiday. We'd love to have you here with our family. For the next 3 or 4 years, every holiday, we want you to come by. I was talking about this to someone in February, and they're from Nebraska. And you don't think of Nebraska as a hotbed of immigration. But he was so excited, he went back to Nebraska. He said, I went back looking because you said so. I thought, I wish I had more people like that in my church. And he said, I went back to Nebraska and I started looking for foreigners. He said, I ran into Japanese, I ran into Arabs, I ran into this and that. He said, I ran into so many people that were from somewhere else. And I started telling people in our church, we got to have all these people over. We can go on a mission trip right here in Nebraska. Trust me, when we go to Nebraska, it's a mission trip. But they were discovering that right there they had all of these countries right there. He said, Russell, what was that book you told us about? And so we're getting them all the resources. Why? Because God brought them right there. What if we made it a priority to go looking for people in the workplace? Come on. Miami's getting a lot of people from a lot of places. And they're coming here. There's different industries. Just get involved in the cruise line industry. How many people from other countries work in that industry? And they spend the weekends here. They get off. It's amazing. They're right here. You know, if you're going to have a store, you've got to have a constituency to keep a store alive. Have you seen any stores that cater, let's say, to Middle Eastern taste? Anybody seen stores like that? For there to be a store that does that, there's got to be a significant number of people that go there, because you and I don't give them enough money to keep going. So there's got to be a big enough group of people to keep that up. For us to be able to drive down Miami Gardens Drive and there be a little mosque, a center there, there's got to be a large enough Muslim population in and among us to keep something like that open. And you go a little further up, and you have a Hindu temple, and you go a little further up, and you've got a Chinese church, and for this to happen, they're here. You go, well, where are they? I never see them. We're not looking. We're not looking. But they're here. They're here. There's evidence of it. They are right here. What if we made it a priority to look for those who are different than we are? Go back to John 4. Soon a Samaritan woman came to draw water, and Jesus said to her, "Please give me a drink. Please give me a drink." This is very interesting. It wasn't the Samaritan woman who made the first move. It was Jesus. Which makes me ask this question: what if we began the conversations and the relationships? What if we took the first step? What if we reached out the hand to welcome them? The first gesture is often the most difficult one, but the bottom line is this: as hosts, we are here, they are coming into our country, our neighborhood, our society. As a good host, we should do what? Welcome them. We're going, no, how about get out of here? No, God didn't bring them here for us to push them away. God brought them here so we could reach out to them. Whoever they are, from wherever they are. Okay, so we're to do this. We're to reach out and make the first move. Jesus did. When he did, all he did was ask a little favor. Let me tell you something. It's one thing to serve, and that's very important, and sometimes that's about, how can I help you? But when you ask them, could you help me with this? What have you done? You have just, in a sense, submitted yourself to them. You've given them the upper hand. That's what Jesus was doing. And that is one way of approaching people, just asking a small favor. Could you help explain that? I want to understand where you're coming from. Would you help me with this? It's an amazing thing. When you ask someone to share their culture with you, it makes them so happy. It makes them so happy. When you find anything that you have in common with them, it's amazing the difference it makes. I was somewhere the other day on another trip. I was up in Orlando, and the people, I went to a hotel, and the lady was there, and I could tell she was from India. And I asked the question, because I always ask, because if I get India and Pakistan mixed up, I'm in big trouble. So I always ask, where are you from? She says, I'm from India. And so I say, what part of India? Whatever part she's from, I've been to India. If it happens to be a place that she's from, I can say something about that place, and it just makes it. Or if it's somewhere I haven't been, I can say, I've never been there, but I did go to so-and-so, and find something good. Listen, masala tea is good. I don't care where it is. And when you say, why do you always eat the food? If you compliment their food, it's good stuff. I've now had mate. I'm a full-fledged Argentine. I suck on that straw that everybody else did too. Some of you are going, ew, hey, I'm mate boy now. I can do that. It burns, but I can do it. And as you're connecting with people, if we began the conversation, if we began the relationship, we know how difficult it is. If you've come from another country or if you've gone to another place to live, it's tough. I go back and I think of times that we moved from one place to another place. From Miami or from the United States to Costa Rica. And I remember even as a 4-year-old, there were some things I didn't know. And I remember when we moved to Peru, how difficult some of the adjustments were. Nothing like adjusting back to the United States. These people up here were weird. But I came back. And you make adjustments every time. You know how difficult it is to adjust. So if somebody's coming, help them. Help them adjust. Just reach out. Find a way to help them. Sometimes they don't want your help. Notice what happened with Jesus. The woman was surprised, for Jews refused to have anything to do with Samaritans. And she said to Jesus, "You're a Jew, I'm a Samaritan woman. Why are you asking me for a drink?" You're going, that wasn't very nice. And it wasn't. It wasn't very nice at all. In fact, if anybody had a right to do it, Jesus said, "Forget you, go to hell." Jesus could have done that. He had that right. Nobody else has that, but he did. But he didn't. He did not let her obnoxious reply stop him. So here's the third one. What if we were persistent in building bridges that were strong enough to deliver the gospel? In other words, if someone doesn't reply or accept your initial offer, if they're not even nice about it, what if you just didn't let that bother you? What if you didn't let that deter you? What if you just kept being nice anyway? You just kept smiling. Instead of saying, well, you know, I did my part. No, you just said, no. God didn't call me just to make the first move. No, I've got a much bigger thing in mind than this. I'm not going to let this bother me. Let me tell you something. People can call you anything they want to. If you don't believe it, it doesn't matter. If you don't buy it, who cares? Do you realize that all my life growing up, I had to read signs that say, "Yankee, go home"? And I kept thinking, well, they got to get Yankees. I wasn't a Yankee. I didn't know they meant me. But if you don't take it personal, it's not personal. And Jesus didn't take it personal. It's like he knew, listen, lady, I've got something you don't have. I've got something you need. And if you really knew who it was that was saying to you, "Give me water," you would say, "Please give me water," you know, all this and that. He just didn't take it personal. He got in there. Now, it takes time. Building bridges takes time. Building bridges takes effort. But never forget the purpose of the bridge. The bridge is so that you can share the gospel. So many times we spend a lifetime building bridges to nowhere. The point is not to build the bridge. The point is to build the bridge that can take the gospel, so that we can find the time and even ask permission. Can I share with you something that's very dear to my heart? Can I share something with you that has changed the way I look at everything about life, and particularly how it changes everything I see about death? Can I share that with you? If they say no, then say, okay, we'll try it another time, and just keep going. The relationship stays intact. You can keep working until God continues to work in their heart, and maybe one day they'll come up to you and say, why are you different? Why are you different than all the other people? Well, because this is what God's done in my life. Now you got an open door. What if we were persistent? It's kind of this. Jesus replied, anyone who drinks this water, verse 13, will soon become thirsty again. But those who drink the water I give will never be thirsty again. It becomes a fresh, bubbling spring within them, giving them eternal life. And the woman said, please, sir, give me this water. Then I'll never be thirsty again, and I won't have to come here to get water. Bottom line is, this woman was there in the high noon getting water because she didn't want to be around the women in the early morning hours. She had a reputation. And nobody wanted to be her friend, so she didn't want to be around with anybody else. And this guy's talking about living water, you'll never be thirsty again. And she's saying, put one in my house right now so that I'll never have to come back here again. What if we cared more about their condition than their situation? Let me tell you something. It is easy to move people's emotions with people's situations. All you have to do is watch television. It's amazing. They can show you a little boy, a little girl in a rough part of a city, dirt floors, no shoes, having to go get water. You know, they can show you this and we're all going, oh, how can we help? And I'm not saying that's wrong, but let me tell you something. Their situation is not the biggest problem. See, their situation is the external. There's a lot of poverty in this world. Let's just say for a minute that we went to La Rinconada. La Rinconada is that little town I went to out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it is well named El Rincón de Nada. I mean, there is nothing out there. The road gets there, and I'm out there and I'm looking around. We ran into one car the last 45 minutes, one car, 2 motor scooters, 1 bicycle, 1 horse. And I'm going, who the heck lives out here? And we get out to La Rinconada, and there's this little town. And it's the hub of that place. And I'm thinking, wow. So I asked the question, how many people live here? They'll say, oh, well, we've got about 200 here in the town. You are La Rinconada. But we've got about 700 around here. And I'm thinking, ooh, Big Sunday. Why? What is there? It's kind of interesting. Grido, which is an ice cream company, Grido uses these big blue tubs that they make for their wine ice cream. It's a whole different story. But anyway, they have these blue things, and after they use them, they give them to the pastor of this little work. He takes it and he puts verses on the blue things and gives them to people. They have no running water in their homes. And they all have systems to catch the rainwater, which obviously there isn't a lot of based on how deserted everything else is. But the government comes out to that part and they fill up this big deal of water, and people come to get water to take home. Well, this guy, Fabian, who is there as a representative of the church, they're there and they're giving them these 120-liter, 40, 50-gallon things to carry, and a little cart that a guy in the church designed that they can carry this, and then they take the tops off and they put in it so they have spigots on them. And they can carry home, the women, most of the ones doing this are women, so they can carry a 40-gallon deal of water back to their house from wherever it is. That's an amazing thing to me. The first blue thing I saw said, hell is real. And I thought, there's something you want on top of your house. But on the back it said, but Jesus saves. And I'm thinking, okay, you got to walk all the way around the house to get the full message, but hey, it works. And they're giving these out. They've now given out 80 of these things. Everybody in town has a gospel witness somewhere in their house. It's amazing. But you know, if we went in there and we took care of all their water problems, and they now have electricity. They didn't have it a few years ago. And Yami actually went out there and spent a night. Yami has just moved up in my book, way up high after I went to La Rinconada. I went and came back one day. But anyway, they were nice to me. And as we went out there, if we solved all of their situational problems and they died and went to hell, who cares? What good did we do? See, if all we're doing is dealing with people's situation and don't deal with their condition, we haven't really helped them. It has to be a full thing. We have to help them in their soul, in their spirit, in their body. We have to help them and give them a complete fix. And it's amazing when people's condition changes, it's amazing how their situation often changes too. Why? Because when your condition changes, now you're working from abundance, not need. Now you're going to a God who can move mountains and he can do amazing. Now your priorities are different and things you used to waste money on, you don't do it anymore. And all of a sudden things change. The people I grew up with in church, they came from neighborhoods with many times dirt floors, nothing finished on the outside. And from that neighborhood, because they got saved, they changed their priorities and family. Many of those are now over in the other side of town, doctors and lawyers, and making a difference. Why? Because when you change people's condition, that helps change their situation. And Jesus knew this. And so when she said, give me that water, he didn't just say, zap, here you got running water at your house. He didn't tell her no either. He said, just bring me your husband. And she goes, I don't have a husband. He goes, you're right. You've had 5, and the guy you're living with now isn't even your husband. And all of a sudden, she sobered up. All of a sudden, she says, it seems that you are a prophet. It's amazing how religious people get when you tell them you're a pastor. People are downright weird sometimes. I've had people smoking and offer me a cigarette, and then they say, hey, what are you doing? I'm a pastor. Oh, really? It's like they're going to break their arm putting it behind their back. I love it. It's hilariously funny watching them. But can you imagine this woman? And Jesus is saying, yeah, I know a whole lot more about you than you think I do. And she's getting kind of freaked out right now. And so she brings up this little question, says, you must be a prophet, so tell me, why is it that you Jews insist that Jerusalem is the only place of worship? And she starts bringing up one of these differences between Jews and Samaritans for years. She brings up the dividing stuff. Write this down. What if we avoided controversies to simply present Jesus? See, our job is not to present politics. Our job is not to present preferences. Our job is not to present opinions. Our job is to present Jesus, and Jesus is enough. I remember when Lyle and April Armstrong, our missionaries to Lebanon, were with us the last time. We had a special night service, and people that were interested came, and they presented Lebanon to us and what was going on and everything. And I remember then there was a time of question and answers, and we had a lot of great questions. But I figured out something. They would say, well, what about Israel and what's going on with there? And he goes, that has nothing to do with presenting Jesus, so I don't deal with that. I thought, okay. Well, what about Hamas and all this and all that? He goes, that has nothing to do with presenting Jesus, so I don't deal with that. Now, mind you, he has a doctorate. He is a professor at the American University of Beirut. This is not a dumb guy. This is a brilliant guy. And he was so brilliant that he didn't touch anything that didn't have to do with Jesus. Let me ask you a question. When you're talking to people and they bring up some political thing, do you take the bait and just launch in? If you do, you're missing the point. Because none of those issues is going to make an eternal difference. May I just say we're about to enter what I think is the worst period in American history that repeats itself every freaking 4 years? We got all the presidential stuff again. I'm going, really? Why don't we just drop them all and the one that bounces wins? I don't care. But we got to go through all of this politics and all of this stuff and when it's all said and done, I don't care who wins, nothing changes. Don't get sucked into these things. Jesus, he didn't get into the God. Now, he didn't say, I'm going to avoid the truth. He said, listen, whether it's here, whether it's there, that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is where the worship comes from. We're supposed to worship in spirit and in truth, and went on about life. He did not let her take him down a rabbit trail of who cares. Oh, but so often we do. Trust me. As an American traveling, I get asked a lot of things about our government and decisions our government makes and decisions that may be extremely popular here and they're not popular anywhere 5 miles outside of here. And they ask me these things and here's what I've said. Number one, you must understand, I am a citizen of heaven first. My allegiance is there. Now, I happen to carry a passport from this one, but I'm not responsible for what they do. My job is higher than this one. And your job is higher than whatever passport you carry. Your job is higher than whatever voter registration card you might have. Your job is to help people's condition. And that will only come by presenting Jesus. The conversation continues with this woman. And the woman said, I know the Messiah is coming, the one who is called Christ. When he comes, he will explain everything to us. Then Jesus told her, I am the Messiah. I am the Messiah. What if we loved people all the way to the truth? All the way to the truth. Remember how this lady was when he began talking to her. She was downright nasty. She was downright rude. But he didn't dismiss her. He just kept loving her. He just kept talking to her. He just kept dealing with her. He didn't walk away. He didn't say, watch me, I can get water by myself. He didn't do that. He just kept, I know, you don't read the Bible the way I do. You really ought to. It's a lot more fun. He didn't do that. He knew what he was there to do. And he just kept loving her till she realized, this is the Messiah. This is the Messiah. Coming to faith in Jesus is usually a process for most people. In fact, you remember a year ago we were reading the Soul Revolution book, and he said that the average person now takes anywhere from 18 to 24 months before they really are ready to accept Jesus. Why? Because they want to examine the way. Then they examine the lives of those who are walking in the way. They're looking at you. They may come with you to church and they hear what is being said, and then they want to see how it changes and affects your life. They're wanting to see if it's real to you. They may actually put you in situations just to see what you're going to do, or if this is just fake. Is this just a Sunday thing, or is this genuine? And they will watch you, and they will watch others. Then they'll make a determination if the way is the one they want to take. You remember that we talked about, and Andy Stanley in one of his deals was showed in our small group, and he said, here are the three things. Number one, follow, then believe, and then obey. That's the steps most people take. And Jesus walked with this lady patiently through the conversation, never dismissing her, never blowing her off, just kept loving her all the way to the truth till she realized this guy is the Messiah. She left the water, left her bucket, jar, whatever she had. She goes back into town. Listen to this. This is really cool. Come and see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could he possibly be the Messiah? So the people came streaming out of the village to see it. I think she went to the men in the village. Why? Because the women didn't like her. Went to the men and she said, come see a guy who told me everything I ever did. And the guys went out running before their wives got there. That's my version. And you know what? Many people came. Many people heard. They begged him to stay around a few days, and he stayed and he continued to talking. What if they were the key to reaching many, many more? What if that foreigner, that person that drinks funny coffee, oh no, that was you. What if the other foreigner that dressed different, that talked different, that smelled like curry all the time, that whatever their difference, what if by reaching them it became the key to reaching an entire village or an entire country somewhere else? What if that student in college he talked funny and he didn't have all the social graces that you think he should have in this country. He was a little awkward, but you got close. You brought him home to meet the family without agreeing to marry him, but you brought him home just to spend time with them, all of these things. What if all of this came out and someday he were prime minister of whatever? But because of what you did, it changed his condition and the condition of his family and the condition of his town or his nation. You never know who that one person's going to be. One little person. I was reminded the other day, the place I grew up in, Lima, Chillon, there was a river behind it. It's a valley and it's green and it's beautiful, which is very different from the rest of Lima. Lima sits in the desert. It is dusty as all get out. But we had a guy named Pablo. Pablo kept this place immaculate. I mean, the grass was always right. Every car that was parked there at 6 o'clock in the morning got washed, no matter whose it was. You just wanted to go visit the Johnsons at 6 in the morning so that your car would get washed. He was just an amazing guy, but he was a very simple guy. Very simple guy. He could read, but not a lot. Just a very simple guy. I won't tell you the whole story. It's amazing. But one day he died. He was cutting a branch and he hit a high voltage line and he died. When they went up to a village about an hour north, which is where his brother and stuff was, they did the funeral. 65 people were saved that day at his funeral. And there's a church there today that has started many other churches because of Pablo. Let me tell you something. You never know who the key is. You never know what it's going to be. And I was listening to testimonies this week about people that had come to go to the seminary there and the things that had happened and where they came from. And some had barely finished third or fourth grade when they came, did not know how to read. This couple came in and all of their belongings were in 2 beer boxes to come and live. And you're going, wow, their situation was horrible. And in 5 years, they finished the 3-year program. And today, that man out of his church has begun 20 churches, Jan, at least. And you're sitting there going, oh my gosh. You never know who's going to be the key. This woman was the key to an entire village. I believe, you can disagree, I believe that when Philip went to Samaria, there was a great revival, not because Philip was such a great preacher, but because there had been some stuff going on ever since that woman at the well in Samaria. And it made a world of difference. What if we took Jesus' words seriously, where at the end of this story he says, but I say, wake up and look around. The fields are already white to harvest. I sent you to harvest. I sent you. 2 things. Wake up. Let me tell you something. We can get into going about and coming to church, and we are here and we are having church, and church is so much fun, and I love IBB, and I love the food after we get through with church, and I love my group, and I love and we can miss what God is doing. Wake up. Look around. I want you to do that. I wanted to have a whole survey done before we got here. Who do we have? And I thought, why am I going to do all that work? Let's all do it together. Let's look around. What grocery stores do we have that cater to people different from us? Don't put down Sedano's. We know that's there. Okay, that's not what I call. But find the other ones. What clubs, what business situations are really being pushed by people that are different from us? Wake up. Look around. Jesus has sent us into a harvest. Harvest is a wonderful time. Harvest is, it's right there. You just got to pick the fruit. I believe that God is doing something in our world that is so big, you don't move 17% of the world around for nothing. He's doing an amazing thing. I think everybody here that is in a public school needs to open up their eyes and say, who is around me? Who are my students? Where are they from? Who are their parents? What are they doing here? How can I reach out and make a difference? Everybody in college here, you need to find out what are the foreign student organizations that are there. What are they doing? Who are they? How can you be involved with them? And you go, well, I'm the foreigner. Get over yourself. You're more American than I am. Look out. Find the other people. They may be the key to changing a family, a village, a city, a country. Look around. Jesus said, I sent you to harvest. Paul got this. He got it. And he said in 1 Corinthians 9, when I am with those who are weak, I share their weakness, for I want to bring the weak to Christ. Yes, and I love this, I try to find common ground with everyone. Common ground with everyone. Doing everything I can to save some. I do everything to spread the good news and share in its blessings. What a wonderful thing. Common ground with everyone. Do me a favor this week. Ask God every day, Lord, open my eyes. Open my eyes. Help me see the people that are different than I am. Help me to find common ground with them. Help me to extend out the hand of friendship. Help me to make the first move. Lord, give me the words. Give me the patience. Help me to understand their condition more than their situation. Lord, use me to find someone that you're trying to reach to be the key to reaching so many more. Would you pray?